All right, Kimberly, do we have a quorum?
We have 4. And
Perfect.
Do you have me, Joe? Bill Baber?
We have you. So it's January 20th, 2022. This is the first meeting of the year. This is a meeting of the San Diego Community Power Special Board of Directors meeting. So I'm going to call this to order, and January 20th, and just after 4 o'clock. And I'm going to ask Kimberly to do a roll call.
Okay, National City Representative. City of San Diego Representative. County of San Diego Representative. La Mesa Representative.
Bill Baber for La Mesa here.
Imperial Beach Representative.
Virginia Hill.
Chula Vista Representative.
Padilla, present.
Encinitas Representative.
Joe Mosca, present.
We have a quorum.
All right, let's move to our first action item, which is approval of findings to continue holding remote teleconference meetings pursuant to Assembly Bill 361. Ryan Barron, our General Counsel, did you want to cue this up?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's been at least slightly more than 30 days since the last findings were made under the Brown Act and AB 361 to continue to hold remote teleconferencing meetings. So we have asked the board to put it on this special meeting agenda so that we can meet virtually and proceed in accordance with the law. These are the routine findings that you've made previously. And so I've just asked that you take public comment on the item and then consider it for approval.
Perfect. Any questions by my fellow board members? Kimberly, do we have any questions from the public?
No public questions.
All right, so the staff has presented us with the recommendation here with findings. Do we have a motion?
I'll move it, Bill Baber.
I can second. Padilla.
All right, we have a motion, a second. Let's vote.
Okay, let's see. Director Baber, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Dedina, how do you vote?
Virginia, aye.
Vice Chair Padilla, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair Mosca, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion carries with 4 directors voting yes.
All right, now on our close, do we have any public comment on non-agendized items or on a closed session items?
Not at this point, no.
All right, on our closed session, we have 2 items: public employee appointment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, titled Chief Executive Officer. That's the first item on the closed session. Second item is conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, agency designated representative Cindy Krebs, Alliance Resource Consulting, unrepresented employee, Chief Executive Officer. So we'll go into closed session now. The board of directors you guys have the link to the closed session. Then we'll come back and report any action we took in closed session in open session. All right, see you guys in closed session.
Megan, I see that you're on. I made you a co-host and there are no public comments that have been submitted.
Okay, thank you, Kimberly.
Hey, Kimberly, can you hear me?
I sure
Just
can, Ty,
Okay, great, thanks. I was having trouble with my audio earlier. I just wanted to check. Thank you.
loud and clear.
Do I need to go back and join the closed session? Kimberly?
No, they're all headed back here now.
Okay. I like your screensaver, Kimberly.
It's your neck of the woods, I believe.
Oh, there you go. If anybody asks you, that's you in the barrel. And it was Hurricane Marie. Okay. You were like super slotted.
Okay, I'll remember that. Let's see.
My mom was a public defender and she showed up at the courthouse in San Diego with all the young DAs and prosecutors, DAs and public defenders. And I'd have come back from surfing, it's like junior high. And then so she'd just pretend she was a surfer for all these guys. It was super funny. Like she'd always make these stories about how all the waves she got in the morning and everything like that. Anyway.
Well, at a meeting this morning, Sebastian said it looked like I was swimming.
But that photo gives you super legit street cred. Like if there's any surfers in it, you're like street cred's all time high for beach stuff. That's all that matters, right?
Well, I'm trying to be color coordinated with the slide presentation.
If you want, we could just spend an entire meeting talking about waves, right, Greg?
I'm in.
I mean,
Hanging 10.
what's more important? It's energy.
Hello?
Hi, Kimberly.
Hello.
So we'll be, the board will be reconvening at 5:30.
Okay, got it.
Kimberly, can you hear me?
I sure can.
Where is everybody?
They were in closed session. Did you just return from closed session?
Yes. Why am I the first person over here?
It looks like the chair is on.
We'll be back on the record at 5:30. We'll start.
Councilmember Baber,
Yes.
are you covering for me tonight?
Yes. City manager, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
No
Thank you.
problem.
You're
I will be-
awesome.
I'll be signing off.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you. Hey, I like your beard, dude.
Thank you. It's keeping
All
me
right.
warm.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye, Greg. Thank you for being here.
No problem.
Kimberly, do we have a quorum of board members?
All right, let me take a count. 1, 2, 3. We have 5.
All right, can you start the recording, please?
Yes, it's recording.
All right, perfect. All right. This is the regular meeting. I'm going to call this to order, a regular meeting of the San Diego Community Power Board of Directors. It's January 20th, and according to my clock, it's 5:30. And so welcome to this meeting. This is our first meeting of the new year. So hope you guys had a really nice holiday season and brand new year here. So we have a lot to do, a lot to cover this year. I've made a few more adjustments to the calendar agenda before you to kind of make sure we're streamlining it and getting the board of directors as much information as they need to make really good decisions and in a timely manner as well. And so hope you like the new agenda, and we'll continue to make adjustments to make sure we're balancing the information that you're getting and need to make good decisions. We have a lot of things ahead of us, lots of milestones. We have the launch of 700,000 customer accounts this year. So really need all hands on deck for the year, and looking forward to all of the accomplishments we're gonna have this year together. So with that, let's do a roll call.
National City Representative. City of San Diego Representative. County of San Diego Representative.
Lawson Reamer present.
La Mesa Representative.
Bill Baber present.
Imperial Beach Representative.
Dina present.
Chula Vista Representative.
Padilla, present.
Encinitas Representative.
Joe Mosca here. Kimberly, did you get Joe Lacava for San Diego?
I did not hear him, but I'll mark him there. Yep.
Okay, Lacava present. Now I know the protocol. Thank you.
All right. So we let's move to Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I think Director Bush has advised that he has joined also. From
Perfect. All right. Kimberly, you want to note that for the record that all right, council member, vice chair, deputy mayor, vice mayor? Or just board member? Board member Bush is, all right, board member Bush is here representing National City. And so let's do our oath of office for Director Lacava. Kimberly, are you going to dispense with the oath?
Yes, Director Lacava, if you could please stand and raise your right hand.
Okay.
And then repeat after me. I, Joe Lacava, do solemnly swear
I, Joe Lacava, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California.
that I take this obligation freely
I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
You are official.
Great, thank you.
Joe, great to have you aboard.
Excited to be here.
Thank you. All right, let's move to report from closed session. Ryan Barron.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Mosca. There's nothing to report out of closed session.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Do we have any items to be added or changed to the posted agenda, Kimberly?
No.
All right, no changes to the posted agenda. Let's move to public comments, and this is an opportunity for members of the public to make comments on items that are not on our agenda.
Chair, we have no written comments, but we do have 2 hands raised. We have
right.
Matthew Greenberg's. You should be able to unmute yourself and you'll have 3 minutes. Matthew, are you there?
Yes, I'm here
There we go.
now. Thanks for having me. I'm a energy manager for Scripps Health, and I was just trying to get a better understanding of the rate increase for 2022 compared to 2021, just to get a better understanding. I understand rates change. SDG&E's rates went up tremendously starting in January. I was just trying to get an understanding of the CCA rate increase because Scripps has many accounts on CCAs. That's all. Just
All right,
asking.
Mr. Greenberg. So the second item on the
Okay.
regular agenda is actually approval of 2022 rates. So that discussion's coming up. If you wanted to listen to that discussion and even comment on that item.
Sure.
Awesome. All right, let's move to the next public speaker.
Okay, our next public speaker is Jim Whalen. Jim, you should be able to unmute yourself and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Mosca and board members. I hope you can hear me. My name is Jim Whalen, J. Whalen Associates here in San Diego. We represent the majority of the commercial scale renewables developers in the county and are excited to play a role in getting San Diego to a zero carbon future. I'm here to ask the board, perhaps separately, to direct staff to work with us on financially feasible energy pricing. We'd like to offer objective information from outside sources and see if we can improve from there. To do this, your staff will need board support. Why is this? Big picture, the way things are going, we're sort of in the bottom with prices skyrocketing, the supply chain for trackers and batteries and everything else in between. The IBEW is also aware of this and has expressed frustration that they have the workers ready to go, but projects are hung up. The big challenge is staff has a firm mandate to beat SDG&E prices, and that may not be possible. To get contracts, some developers may agree to low prices, but with costs going up, these projects simply won't happen. My point is the CCAs need to be driven by more than the lowest prices. There are other factors that need to be considered, like energy reliability, climate plans, and the local workforce. The issue is pricing here isn't even close to the market price, and in some cases it's as bad as half. I understand, though, the issue is largely confined to battery pricing, not the solar generation itself. And as an example, Sdcp, I believe, is hearing the market is at $5 to $7 a megawatt hour, but it's actually $9 to $12 a megawatt hour. And as an aside, Goldman Sachs notes that there's tremendous demand in few projects. And in fact, one of our projects in Ocotillo Wells, unfortunately, will likely be selling their power out of the area because they couldn't make it work here, to their great disappointment. Let's work together to make local renewable energy success it should be. Thank you for your attention.
Jim, thank you for those comments. Very good comments. Bill, I'm going to ask our CEO to follow up with you. Or better yet, Jim, could you go onto our website? If we were in person, I'd basically just ask Bill to go over and talk to you. But since we're not, maybe you can go onto the website and find the email address for Bill Carnahan, who's our interim CEO, and you can follow up with Bill. He's listening to us right now.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Any other public speakers, Kimberly?
There's no other hands raised at this time.
And no more, and no written comments. All right, so we're done with public comment and we'll move to the consent calendar. We have 8 items on the consent calendar. We can handle this as one motion if no items are pulled from the consent calendar. Are there any board members that want to pull any item from the consent calendar or any questions on the consent calendar? If there are no questions or comments on the consent calendar, then I would entertain a motion on the oh, you know what? Let's go move to public comment on the consent calendar.
There are no written comments and no hands raised at this time.
All right, I would entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
Move that we approve the consent calendar.
Right, so we have a motion by Director Bush
Lacava, second.
and a second by Director Lacava. Let's vote.
Chair, interrupt. I'm so sorry. Someone just raised their hand. I'm not sure if you want to allow them.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Curtis Dowds, you should be able to unmute yourself and you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I've never attended a meeting. I didn't know you guys existed until 2 days ago. So somehow I did not receive an option to join SDCP, but I've been in the solar business for quite some time and I'm a tenacious opponent of TOU pricing. So I'd like to object to that. And I'm trying to develop a conversation with some of your staff on that subject. Secondly, I've had solar for 18 years. I'm grandfathered on the DR tariff under SDG&E for 2 more years, but I thought from the beginning that a 20-year grandfathering was completely uncalled for because solar systems last much longer. So I'd like to engage a conversation about changing that. And I'm also wondering what authority the SDCP would have to annul SDG&E Rule 19, which is basically one of the greatest impediments to rooftop solar in California, at SDG&E and in California generally under the IOUs. But these are conversations I'm going to engage with your staff, and then I'd like to come back later and talk about them in detail. Thank you.
Thank you. So those were about 6 different items that could take us about an hour and a half, 2 hours to discuss. I'm wondering, Bill, do we have a way since we're virtual, we're going to stay virtual for a little bit. Do we have a way for us to kind of share information with the public speakers? If they just have more questions for staff, how do I give them information to get in touch with you? Is there a certain email or telephone number that they can call to kind of ask those questions? Because those are all good questions.
Probably the easiest one to access would be our website.
Right. So go to www.sdcommunitypower.org.
Yes.
And then is there an email there that they can email questions or get in touch with somebody?
Yes, I believe there is. Otherwise, they can email me or any member of the staff. Our email addresses are our first initial last name at sdcommunitypower.org.
All right. So that's it. That's a good point. So we'll just send everybody to you, Bill. All right. You're free to go on to www.sdcommunitypower.org and find Bill Carnahan and email him those questions. And then Bill, you can send it to the appropriate staff.
Sure, we can do that.
So let's take it back to the board, and we have a motion on the table and a second to that motion. And I think Megan was just about to call roll, or Kimberly is.
I will call for a vote. Director Bush, how do you vote?
Yes.
Director Lacava, how do you vote?
Lacava, yes.
Director Lawson-Remer, how do you vote?
Yes.
Director Baber, how do you vote?
Yes.
Director Dedina, how do you vote?
Dedina, yes.
Vice Chair Padilla, how do you vote?
Yes.
Chair Mosca, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion carries with all directors voting yes.
All right, we're going to move to item number 9, which is the election of chair and vice chair for calendar year 2022. And you'll recall that we just amended the joint powers agreement, and we used to do the election of chair and vice chair on a fiscal year basis, which means that Steve and I, Steve being the vice chair, were just appointed in June. But the JPA was amended to put it on calendar year so that this would come up and be aligned with when board members are generally appointed to the board of directors of SDCP, which is when cities kind of make their appointments. And so we thought no better time to realign this than now. And so I am and Vice Chair Steve Padilla are still interested in serving as your chair and vice chair. I'm proud to serve as your chair and feel like we've accomplished a lot in the last year. And we have so much more to accomplish this year. So I'm very excited about continuing to serve in the role of chair and hope Vice Chair Padilla as well. And would love to have your support to serve for another term as your chair of SDCP. So I will open it up for nominations.
I make a motion to approve or to nominate Joe Mosca as our chair and Steve Padilla as our vice chair.
Do we have a second on that?
Yeah, Dina seconds.
All right. Is that, Ryan, is that how you want it done?
That's great, Mr. Chair.
All right, perfect. So we have a motion and a second.
Okay.
Do we have any public comment on this item?
We have no written comments and no hands raised at this time.
All right, let's vote on this motion.
Director
Wait, I
Bush?
wanted to make a comment. I'm making a nominating speech, right? Like we're at a convention.
Go for
I
it.
wanted to say, and I told this to our city council last night, and we had Cody and Rita there. I've been exceptionally impressed with this board. I've said that before, but a staff in this organization. Been really rewarding to serve on this board. The leadership under Joe Mosca and Vice Chair Steve Padilla is very impressive. And what I think is really important about this board and the leadership is they're committed 1,000% to the mission and to what we do and to the organizational development piece. So I really appreciate that. And I've seen the leadership in action. So I'm really glad that you guys are continuing. You're continuing to serve in those roles along with the entire board. So thank you.
Thank you, Serge.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, let's vote.
Director Bush, how do you vote?
Yes.
Director Lacava, how do you vote?
Lacava, yes.
Director Lawson Reamer, how do you vote? Sorry, Director Lawson Reamer, how do you vote?
Yes.
Director Baber, how do you vote?
Yes.
Director Dedina, how do you vote?
Yeah, yes.
Vice Chair Padilla, how do you vote?
Yes.
Chair Mosca, how do you vote?
Yes,
Motion carries with all directors voting yes.
perfect. Let's move to item number 10, approval of 2022 rates. And I think Cody Hubin and Lucas are taking this item.
Yeah, I think I'm actually going to kick it off with a preface to it, and then we'll move through it as quickly as we can. I think it's fairly straightforward. I think it's conservative in nature and yet forward-looking in terms of what our needs are going to be in the future. So next slide, please. What we do in terms of rate setting, and we intend to do this really on an annual basis, just to sample where we are, whether we need a rate increase or not. And so this is our second year at doing this. And so we're going to actually talk about some of the guiding principles, a little bit about how we do it. Why are we doing it at this particular time? What may have changed from last year that make the rates not effective anymore? We do that by taking our costs and updating them to today's costs. And then we compare that with the existing rates to see if those existing rates are sufficient to carry us forward and meet all of our goals and criteria in terms of reserves, et cetera. And then we propose the rates to the board for their consideration, which is what we're doing here tonight. So next slide. And first thing we do is actually take a look at updating our costs. And the biggest cost we have in our budget, or what we call an updated pro forma, is really power costs. Next year, 90% of our costs are power supply related, which we're in a competitive open market. So we really don't have a lot of control over what those costs are. So once we determine our needs, then we would compare that to the cost today. We take a look at our operating costs. We add those in. We look at our credit and bank obligations. We're a startup. We've borrowed money to begin operations, and so we owe that back and with interest. So we have to make sure our financial planning covers that obligation. And then lastly, we have reserves. Like any business, we need to have a reserve for rainy days, unexpected expenses, bumps in the road, things that occur infrequently. And so we actually have a reserve policy. So we layer over the reserve policy sort of as the last item, then that determines what our proposal is going to be. We want to remember that we have a very high quality product, certainly higher than the competition. It's 50% renewable minimum up to 100%, which the 100% rate, Power 100 is very attractive rate for that. We want to make sure that we have stable rates. We don't want them bouncing up and down every year or bouncing around. And so we look for rate stability. We want to be able to communicate and be transparent in the process, which is what we're really doing tonight. We're showing you how we go about it, where the drivers are, what our goals are, and then we build it from there. And then the ultimate is the recommendation that we're making tonight. And of course, the end of that process, we're always I call it looking over our shoulder, but we're always doing making sure that we live up to our commitment to be at or below our competition, and that is SDCP, SDG&E, and we've met that criteria in the recommendation. So with that, we'll sort of dive into actually the steps that we go through. So Cody.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So first, I want to remind you of the timeline of the rate setting process, and for, in particular, 2022. So the row along the top you'll see is SDCP action. So in April, we adopted our rates that are currently still in effect. And in June, we began service to our phase 2 customers under those rates. Skipping ahead to December of 2021, we had a pretty detailed presentation for you last month where we talked about what to expect for rates from SDG&E this coming year, although we didn't have complete information, so it was really just a baseline of knowledge. And then, of course, today we're here to present rates for your adoption, and those will take effect on February 1st, which is just in time for our beginning of our residential enrollment. Along the bottom, you'll see different SDG&E actions over that same time frame. So in June, they had another rate change after their initial setting earlier in the year. In August of that year, they began their presentation to the CPUC of what their next year's rates would look like. And the reason that we track those so closely and actually engage pretty heavily in that proceeding is because not only are they setting their own rates from which we often get compared, but they set things like the PCIA, which is the power charge and difference adjustment, or as you all know, there's above market costs of their portfolio that our customers also have to pay, as well as franchise fee calculations are set. So all of those fees impact our customers, and we want to know what those look like before we set our rates to ensure we know the total impact to our customers. Moving ahead to November, SDG&E had another rate change and then filed an update to that forecast to the CPUC. It gets more clear each time they file an update, but it's not final until, jumping ahead to December, the CPUC, the California Public Utilities Commission, approves SDG&E's filing. And then we get their rates, I believe we got them on December 30th, the 30th of last year. That gives us just this little window to crunch all that information and turn that into rates for ourselves and our organization. And their rates took effect January 1st. Next slide, please. And so Bill mentioned in the beginning what's changed. So we take a look at what has changed for us and what we need to change on our end. And the biggest thing, the biggest impact that we've all seen across the board, whether it's a CCA or investor-owned utility or other entities in the market buying power, is that market prices or natural gas prices have increased quite dramatically. And the numbers here don't necessarily matter, but the point is that they've pretty much doubled since January of 2020. And that's things that you can remember. Heat waves in California, the Texas cold snap, those types of things all really dramatically affect the cost of this market and these power costs. And we were affected by that just like everybody else. Next slide, please. And then next, what we do is, as Bill mentioned, we look at our pro forma, and not to worry about all the numbers here. We actually zoom in on the next slide so you can see this better. The point is just to show you that we do a 5-year assessment of our pro forma. This is a living document for us that we constantly update as we sign contracts and update prices and things like that. And we look at both our revenue and then our expenses and what the difference is, or the net surplus or deficit. What we started with was looking at, if we don't change our rates from last year, what does that look like for us and for our pro forma? And so you'll see here the difference between our revenue, which is 353 million, and our expenses, 336. And looking at some other costs that we have, we end up with a net surplus of $500,000. So an organization of our size in the stage that we're in, which we're still enrolling customers and still in the startup mode and still have lines of credit, $500,000 does not protect us against even a tiny blip in the market or one unexpected cost. So we started there to see what a no rate change would look like, but clearly it's not financially sound for us. It also creates cash flow for us and we'd be cash flow negative in some months of the year. And again, as a startup, looking month to month is still critically important for us, as well as the bank that provides us our loans and our other creditors. This would not really provide confidence in us to them. I will pause here briefly. Dr. Washington, Eric is our CFO. He's on here if you'd like to make any comments on this slide, Eric.
Yes, thank you, Cody. Good evening, Chair and Directors. To Cody's point, if we don't make a rate increase looking forward, as you can see from this slide, and we'll dive in a little deeper on the next slide, we actually land at a $31 million deficit. So we'd be in a black. So not only does that net surplus in 2022, that also rolls forward into 2023. So that's what we're facing if we, under this scenario, with no rate change.
Thank you. Go ahead to the next slide and we could talk through that as well. And so
Okay,
what we did, oh, go ahead, Eric, actually, if you want to, go ahead.
Oh, no. So what we did was we looked at doing no rate change. That was presented in the previous slide in highlighted red boxes. And that's what you see in this condensed version of that pro forma. So we project a $386 million revenue with the rate change, which would allow us to contribute a net surplus to the tune of $29.5 million to our cumulative reserves. We're cash flow positive, and the reserves really are to support any unexpected or unexpected increase in costs or any other unexpected event that might occur where we may have to lean into our working capital reserve to get us through it. So as you can see, based on the analysis here, that $30 million cumulative lands us at a 7.65% reserve, which is allowed under policy, which allows us to reserve anywhere from 0 up to 15% of our gross revenue. So after rigorous discussion with staff and after being able to analyze information from SDG&E and the presentation that was made to the board in December, this is where we landed. So this really allows us to provide a savings, which we'll get into a little later in the presentation.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, so you'll see that we compared our no rate change to the proposed rate change that we're presenting tonight and feel confident in the proposed rate change. And I'm going to hand now the presentation over to Lucas Uto, who's been working on our rates diligently and knows them inside and out. And we'll show you now what this means for a customer, both the typical small commercial customer as well as a residential customer, because that's ultimately what matters is how they'll feel this change. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Cody. Good evening, Chair Mosca and the directors. So what you're seeing before you is a projected bill comparison for a typical small commercial customer on rate TOUM, which is small commercial, so small business at a high level. On the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, essentially this is the comparison between our power on and SDG&E's base product, effective as of the last rate change in 2021, which was for SDG&E November 1 of 2021. And for us, it was as of our board approved rates effective as of June 1st. The first line item of generation, this essentially represents the commodity charge. And this is the piece that we can control in the broader rate setting process. The PCIA and the franchise fees, they actually do have the asterisks because these two factors, even though in this example appear as if only SDCP customers are getting assessed these two fees, PCA being the above market cost. Truth of the matter is, every customer, whether you're served by SDCP or whether you're served by SDG&E, you ultimately get assessed these two components. The only difference being with the bundle customers, the two are actually embedded as part of your generation costs. And so then comes the total generation related charges line item, which is essentially now the cost of what a customer can expect from a generation perspective, factoring in the PCI and franchise fees. And this is where you can see the value proposition that the board adopted in June actually play out. And then obviously the SDG&E delivery charges, and these are the costs associated with moving the electricity from where it's generated to where it's consumed, and every customer pays for those charges. And that's the reason why you see that our between SDCP and SDG&E customers, the delivery charge is more so the same. And then comes the total average monthly bill. And then when you look at the right-hand side, this actually captures the rates as they are proposed in 2022. So for us, being the rates that are before the board this tonight, wherein we are comparing what the total bill impact is relative to SDG&E's latest rates effective as of January 1st. The piece that I definitely would like to stress on is the SDCP discount column. You can clearly see that even with the proposed rates, that our value proposition is going to be enhanced at 2%. The prior board approved rates effective June 1st, the value proposition there was only 1%. And what this means at a broader high level is customers can expect to see a 1% savings proposition across their total bill once these proposed rates are adopted. Now, the total bill change since 11/2021 that you see at the bottom, the two rows, this is essentially just capturing what this means relative to the rates that were in effect as of last year. So customers on this rate tier generally speaking, will expect to see their bill increase by about 11%. And then when you benchmark it against the common starting point for our rate change relative to SDG&E's rate change in the last year, customers on this rate, if they were bundled, they would actually see a 13% increase in the total bill relative to ours, which is at 11%. Now, what this all means is customers are getting a far superior product from us in terms of the renewable energy content, being 50% relative to SDG&E's 31% for their base product. And they can also expect to see that enhanced value proposition from 1% savings that was inbuilt into our June 1st rate change relative to these proposed rates, wherein that value proposition is being enhanced to 2%. Moving on to the next slide. This actually depicts the exact same, Kimberly, thank you. This actually depicts the exact same bill comparison for an average residential customer on rate DR, which is a very common rate across our region. And on the left-hand side, again, this is just a joint rate comparison between SDG&E and us relative to the last rate change last year, relative to what that would look like with the proposed rates as they compare to SDG&E's January 1st, 2022 rates. Value proposition enhancement to 2% for a much more superior product at 50% renewable and 5% carbon free. And then the quantification of what this all means from an expected total bill change across the board between SDCP on power on for a customer on that service relative to SDG&E's base product that is at 31% renewable. Moving on to the next slide. So this.
Sorry, Lucas, can you go back to that last slide again?
Sure.
So since we weren't serving residents in last year, so the 15% it's not an increase in rates for SDCP customers because we weren't serving, but you're saying we set rates for residential customers. And so it's a 15% increase.
Correct.
And it's a 20% increase, that SDG&E's rates are a 20% increase?
Correct. So from a common starting benchmark, which was the March 1, 2021 rates. That is the baseline that we utilize to carve out our June 1st board approved rates. And so when you compare what the rates were for a customer on this DR, starting at March relative to what the rates are in 2022 for a bundle customer, the rate, or rather the total bill increase is approximately 20%, whereas for us, it's a 15%. And you're absolutely right, Chair Mosca. We typically didn't have residential customers in phase 1 and 2. However, there were a handful of residential customers affiliated with municipal entities that we served as part of those 2 phases in 2021.
All right, but the overarching point is that it's for SDCP customers, it would be a 2% discount per generation.
That is correct.
All right, perfect.
This slide is actually an extension of the presentation that we did for the board in December, wherein because of the fact that SDG&E views our customers as part of the vintage, which simply signals the fact that when these customers left bundle service, so our phase 1 and 2 customers are considered to be part of vintage 2020, whereas the phase 3 customers that we will start serving next month and beyond, those are considered to be vintage 2021. Generally speaking, the vintages have different PCI assessments. And in this year, in 2022, what we've observed is that there are material deltas in the PCI assessment. And so as part of our broader rate setting strategy that ensures fair, equitable, and balanced rate structure for all customers, our recommendation in December was that we were going to bifurcate rates based on vintages. And this is essentially so as to allow for the customers, regardless of when SDG&E views them as having departed bundle service, they can realize that same value proposition of 2% across the board. And with that, I'll pass the baton back to Cody.
Do you have any questions from the board? This is some really complex, heavy stuff, and want to make sure that we leave time for folks to ask questions if there are questions. And feel free to shout out if we're kind of moving through the presentation. You have a question. Any questions? All right, Cody, sorry about that.
It's okay, Bill. Actually, I'm going to hand it right back to Bill. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to summarize all these numbers and all these concepts that we've tried to educate everyone on, and leading to our proposal. We have maintained the rate differentials, which was a big goal for us. Even though we're delivering a higher quality product, the 50% versus 31, when you think about it, we're 40% better than they are in that category. And that's significant, since one of our goals is to deliver as much renewable energy as we can deliver. We're certainly ahead of them in terms of meeting that obligation for our customers. The Power 100, which is the 100% category, is significantly lower than the comparable SDG&E equal choice rate. We have a number of community power plan projects underway. We are now beginning with maturity, with some staffing to focus on individual programs that can take effect in the member cities. We realize that the mission of ours is not just to give higher quality power at a lower cost, but also to deliver programs that meet your needs in these areas as well, on as much an individual basis as we can, because not all cities are the same. Not all of our members want the same thing. So we're now starting to develop some expertise and doing some outside work to see what is the best for us to do in that area. We also know that under this plan, that contributions towards reserves is an issue of maintaining stability so that we can weather the storms and come out strong on the other side. And we're also able to stand the ups and downs too, so that should the markets move away from us next year, we have better flexibility and better ways to deal with that. And also it satisfies our credit obligations. And actually, if we continue down this track, it will enhance our creditability. Just like buy a house, you need a credit rating, and one of these days we'd like to get one for us. And we think it's going to take about 3 years, but we have to build for that. So this actually makes a contribution in that arena as well. So with that, we would ask that you approve the change in rates, or we'll answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for staff?
Joe, I got one question.
Yes, Director Lacava.
Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the briefing previously, and perhaps for the advantage of the board members. The third bullet, the Power 100, significantly lower than the Echo Choice. We know that the Echo Choice is going a little crazy over at SDG&E. So is that last year's Echo Choice rates, or is it the 2022 Echo Choice that were significantly lower?
Lucas, I think that's your item, isn't it?
Certainly is. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Director Lacava. You're absolutely right. The Power 100 being significantly lower cost than SDG&E's Eco Choice is actually effective as of SDG&E's latest rate change as of January 1st of 2022. When we've actually analyzed the total bill impacts to customers on Eco Choice relative to our Power 100, we are seeing that our Power 100 is approximately 2 times less expensive than SDG&E's Eco Choice. And to that effect, SDG&E did file an advice letter with the CPUC last month, essentially suspending or requesting to have their Eco Choice program suspended.
Okay, and what's the differential between the Power 100 and what do you call the 50% one, Power On? What's the differential between those two?
The differential in terms of price is,
price, yes.
Yeah. So the way that the Power 100, a customer on Power 100 would actually get billed is they do get an additional adder of 0.0075 per kilowatt hour on top of their Power On. And as far as quantifying that from a percentage terms, it depends with the usage, but generally speaking, it's anywhere between 2 to 3%.
Wow,
higher.
That's pretty fantastic. So, thank you for those responses, and thank you for again tonight's presentation. And that concludes my comments, Chair.
Thank you, Director Lacava. Lucas, is that 2 to 3% higher on average from the 50% on the Power On, or is that 2 to 3% higher than SDG&E's 30 base product?
So that is 2 to 3% higher than our base Power On, which for an average customer, for an average residential customer, translates anywhere between $3 to $4 more on their bill.
All right. So since Eco Choice is kind of going away, or maybe going away, and in the future, it'll just be the base product. What is the delta currently between the base product of SDG&E and the 100%?
The delta between SDG&E's base product and our Power 100?
Yes.
As of right now, it's, let's see, just give me 1 second. It is about
It's a premium product. I mean, if you're going from 31% to 100% clean renewable energy, I mean, you're paying a premium, but I'm just wondering what the delta is.
The delta is about 8%.
Is it, and that's on average?
That is on average. And this is actually for an average residential customer.
All right. All right. Any other questions? I want to say that you guys have done an excellent job. This presentation is really good. And I think that you've worked and enhanced the presentation. I think it's clear and really concise, and gives us a nice balance of information to make decisions on rates. And let's face it. I mean, we read in the paper, we've been reading the paper, lots of papers that are talking about energy increases. I think as San Diego Union Tribune just ran an article about the increases in gas prices. There's gas prices increasing throughout Europe and Asia. And so all these markets are linked and connected, and the increases are just continuing. And so that is one of the primary factors that I'm seeing in terms of the increases for energy cost. And so I think that what we've done here is this is a very reasonable recommendation, and allows us to continue, delivering renewable energy and more renewable energy than the local utility at a discounted rate. And it allows us to start building up to reserves so that we can start putting programs together and bringing online more renewable energy. One question, an additional question for staff is about the reserve policy. So did I hear it correctly that our reserve policy is 0 to 15? And if that is, are we going to bring that back at some point and have further conversation about where we want it to be?
I can take that one, Bill. Great question, Chair Mosca. So yes, the existing reserve policy allows us to reserve anywhere from 0 to 15%. The idea would be to come back at least on an annual basis to review the policy and adjust it accordingly.
All right. I mean, I think so if we're going to do it on an annual basis, I think that's good, because I do think that would give rise to discussions about what we want to focus on and what those reserves would be used for, and then kind of really set a proper reserve. But this being our first year, and we still have a county and national city to launch even 2023, we're still in that kind of building formation and mode. So 7%, it sounds like is very prudent. To push it any higher would really push the rates above where we want them to be and where reasonable would be. All right. Any other comments, staff members or board members? Questions? Kimberly, or Megan, do we have any public comments on this item?
We don't have any written public comments, but we do have a hand raised.
All right, let's recognize that person.
Okay, Curtis Dowds, you should be able to unmute yourself and you'll have 3 minutes.
This is a lot of information for someone who hasn't really been looking at you closely to digest in a few minutes, but you did mention that most residential customers are still on DR, which is a tiered tariff. And from what I've been able to gather so far by looking at what you're proposing, I don't see a tiered tariff in what a residential household would enroll in. Am I missing something? And I hope I don't butcher his name, but I call him TOU. Could he tell me whether there's a DR counterpart in what you're offering next year, or to residential enrollees?
Lucas.
So is that your public comment, Curtis?
Yeah, it's a question.
All right.
Will there be a DR alternative, a tiered tariff alternative?
All right, well, great. I will ask the staff to respond to that.
I think that's right down Lucas's alley.
Thanks, Bill. Indeed. Thank you for the question, Mr. Dowds. You are absolutely right. We do have a DR equivalent in our rate offering. It's there. If you've taken a look at the board packet pertinent to the rate item before the board this evening, it should be the first rate actually on the rate schedule depicted on the board packet. As far as the tiered pieces related to this rate are concerned, as I'm pretty sure you are aware, the tiering actually happens on the transmission and delivery and not on the generation, which is the piece that, you know, SDCP replaces on your bundle bill. And so, you know, the tiering mechanics, those are not going to change because it's essentially part of the delivery service that SDG&E will continue to offer to you as a DR customer and to all customers on DR rate schedule.
I think it's always going to be this situation where folks are confusing what our role is and what SDG&E's role is and the rates. It is complicated, and when you look at the division of rates and you know what the role that we play with setting some of those other fees and rates is different. Anyways, good question, and I do hope that Curtis will reach out to staff and maybe have further conversations about some of the questions that he has offline. That would be awesome, because I think that there are a series of questions that he had previously as well. Any other comments from public?
There are no other hands raised at this time.
All right, Megan, you said there are no comments received by the public.
Correct. There's no written public comments.
All right, excellent. All right, let's bring it back to the board. And any further questions or comments? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move the staff recommendation, Lacava.
We have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
Bush, second.
All right, we have a second on that motion. Let's vote.
Director Bush, how do you vote?
Bush, yes.
Director Lacava, how do you vote?
Lacava, yes.
Director Lawson Reamer, how do you vote? Director Lawson Reamer? Director Baber, how do you vote?
Baber, no.
Director Dedina, how do you vote?
Dedina, yes.
Vice Chair Padilla, how do you vote?
Yes.
Chair Mosca, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion carries with 5 directors voting yes, or 6 directors voting yes, and 1 director voting no. Actually, that's 5 directors voting yes, 1 director voting no, and 1 did not vote.
All right, let's move to item number 11, which is update on CEO search. By the way, thank you, staff, for that presentation. It was a great presentation. Thank you. And I know that there's a lot of work that goes into that presentation and the rates behind the scenes. So thank you for everything you've done. And so we completely appreciate it. Let's move on to item number 11, update on CEO search ad hoc committee efforts. And this is going to be, is this Cindy Krebs, our executive recruiter, or is the ad hoc committee taking this? Or both?
I'll take it, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Vice Chair Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ad hoc provided an update to the full board in closed session today, received some good feedback on refining the process. We're approaching the deadline at the end of the month for the receipt of applications by interested candidates. Once all those applications are in, we'll make information available as to the number of applications that we have received and the level of interest, obviously, without any personal information at that point attached. The ad hoc committee is moving along generally according to the schedule the board has laid out. We anticipate selecting through preliminary screening and consultation with our consultant, 4 to 5 top candidates, and then being able to make a recommendation of a group of 2 or 3 finalists for interview by the full board, and hoping that those interviews will take place at the end of March. We're also in the process, once we have those applications in and we're looking at coming up upon the process, I want to reiterate that we're refining the process to take input from both our advisory committee as well as our staff and other community stakeholders in the process of refining that. The board values the input of our stakeholders and staff, and that is where we're at. And hopefully we'll have a good crop of folks to review and to move forward through a transparent and inclusive process and come out with a good result.
Thank you, Vice Chair Padilla.
Thank you.
Director Baber or Cindy, did you have anything else to add?
Nope, I think Steve summarized it correctly.
All right. Any comments or questions by the board? Megan, do we have any public comment received on item number 11?
We have no written public comments and there are no hands raised at this time.
All right, we'll bring it back to the board. And this is
Sorry, Chair, sorry to interrupt. We do have one hand raised just now.
Perfect. Let's recognize that person.
Okay, Crystal, you should be able to unmute yourself and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you. I actually don't need 3 minutes. Just Supervisor Lawson Raymer is on as a viewer, and we just wanted to ask that she get promoted back to panelist. Thank you.
Oh. I will do that right now. There we go. Thank you for letting us know, Crystal.
I'm just going to wait for 1 second so that she comes back in.
I got promoted.
Awesome. So Director Lawson Raymer, so we're on item number 11, update on CEO search ad hoc committee efforts. And Vice Chair Padilla just gave some comments, and I called on public comment, and there was no written or oral public comment, and I'm bringing it back to the board of directors. Do you have any comments on item number 11?
No, I've actually been listening. I just was a viewer.
All right, perfect. So this is a receive and file. So that's exactly what we'll do. We'll receive it and file it. And thank you, Vice Chair Padilla and Director Baber, and also to Alejandra Sotelo Solis, who is in Washington, D.C., representing the great city of National City at the Mayor's Conference. And I just saw that she met the President of the United States and the First Lady. So kudos to her. And she's also on the ad hoc committee with Vice Chair Padilla and Director Baber. So thank you for the efforts that they're undertaken to help us recruit our next amazing CEO and leader to lead our organization forward. So we'll receive this report and file it. We're going to move on to reports by our CEO and General Counsel, Bill Baber. Do you have Bill Baber? Bill Baber, do you want to be our CEO? Bill Carnahan. We have too many Bills.
That's a compliment, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, Bill Carnahan, do you have a report?
Very quickly, just to report on 3 items, one of which is the CEO search is well underway. Everybody's working very hard on that. You heard an update report. Landmark dates coming around starting in February. Phase 3, the residential integration into our system begins, and that's going to be growing in momentum until we get to the end, and we have the city of San Diego coming in, and so that's going to be a big deal. A lot of customers. We have a major effort in educating the customers that it's coming, 2 notices before, 2 notices after, that sort of thing. And so it may be pretty much behind the scenes except for that kind of notification, but it is underway, and it will significantly increase our number of customer level by about 700,000. So
will we mark as we did last year with I know we had Mayor Gloria out when we kind of launched. Are we going to mark the milestone of launching residential customers? I'll leave that to staff to kind of get back to us, but it would be cool to kind of mark it.
We should do something a little special this
right.
And then the other thing just to mention is that we are getting in the final stages of the planning for our strategic planning workshop, which is now scheduled for March the 4th. And that'll help the course plot, the board course be set. We have been trying to do this for several months. Looks like now we might succeed, and that'll be a major effort for us in planning our future. So that is now currently underway and progressing just fine. So with that, that's all I have.
Thank you, Bill. Ryan, did you have anything to report?
No, I do not. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any director who would like to make a comment? All right, well, that's it. Thank you so much. This is the first meeting of the year and it went really well. And so I'm looking forward to many more and looking forward to everything we're going to achieve this year. There's so much going on, and just we need everybody, just all hands on deck this year, because there's just a lot going on, and we we really need everybody focused on some of the decisions that are going to be coming at us, and they're going to be coming at us really fast. But we'll try to streamline the agendas to make sure that you're getting a good balance of information. We're able to make decisions well and timely. So thank you. This meeting is adjourned until the next meeting in February.